Hello, everyone. So I hope that this is going live now. For those of you who are joining us, my name is Manuel Vila Santiago, and I'm your instructor for this course. You probably see me already in a couple of the videos, and you probably see a little bit more of me. So looking forward to reading more of you. I'm already reading some of your thoughts here in this class, and I'm really excited with what I'm seeing so far. So a little bit about me, since we're talking so much about identity and we've been having such a nuanced and thoughtful discussions in those discussion boards. I've been teaching communication and culture during the last 6 years. I was born and raised in the island of Puerto Rico, been living in the United States since 2006. I did my PhD at the University of Texas at Austin, and I've been with ASU during the last 6 years. I'm already an associate professor of communication and culture, and I've been working designing this class during the last year, and it's been a lot of fun. But I was not expecting that I was going to be enjoying so much the process of being able to read your thoughts and grade some of the material. So I'm looking forward to have this conversation today. I have a couple of questions that I already received through the discussion forums, and I would like to go over some of them because I think they're really interesting, and I think this one is fascinating and really provocative. Is that will this class help me learn and understand communication skills like body language? Yes, and I think this is one of the most provocative and insightful modules in this class. I feel that when you have the ability to identify the grammar of body language, it's a way to empower yourself and empower the communication process. I don't want to give a lot of information of what body language entails so far because I want to honor that amazing module that we designed for some of you. But things like your smile, your eye contact, your gestures, the way you dress, all of those things are elements that belongs to the grammar of body language or nonverbal communication. And nonverbal communication is an intrinsic part of the communication process of human communication. So I think that it's going to be an eye opener kind of module. I'm looking forward to see what your thoughts are in that part. So I have another question here. Second. This is really interesting, and I get this question a lot. With people being so attached to their cell phones and face-to-face eye contact seeming to die out, do you think there will be time where phone calls or video chat in will outweigh in-person interaction? I think that there is a tendency to kind of put a blame in technology, and that's always been the case with many technological items. I remember growing up, that fear towards television and how television was going to ruin the process of interacting with your family, right? But then we see how society kind of interact with those technologies and find ways to make it work. And I think we're seeing that kind of dynamic with the phones. I see more and more today the dynamic that once people get into a table, people put the phone away as some sort of a kind of initiative to avoid looking at the phone while having an in-face kind of conversation. At the same time, we are seeing this emphasis in adding, let's put it, nonverbal cues to cell phones. Like when you send a text, that obsession with emojis, those obsessions with creating some sort of a GIF images or memes that will go along to that message in some sort of way, add some emotion towards that text message that you're constructing. So there is a definite interest in creating some sort of a balance. Is it the same? No, it's not going to be the same, but it's another venue. It's another opportunity of communication. So, and we should not put things like say this one is better than the other, because this is the reality. We're dealing with this kind of technology on a daily basis, and we need to in some way create some sort of balance in how to interact with those technologies and balance the process of human communication versus the digital mediated human computer interaction. Yeah. That's okay. Let's see. Yeah, there's one here really interesting. It says, is there a direct link to happiness or sadness based on one's ability to communicate effectively? In more of a long-term time horizon, not on just an individual interaction. This is a very philosophical question, I have to say. First of all, happiness and sadness, it's in a spectrum, and it's very contextual based. So what the idea of happiness for me is probably not the same as the idea of happiness for people that are watching this video. Same thing with sadness. And it happens, it's a similar situation with communication. I saw a couple of posts of students saying, like, I want to have a perfect kind of communication dynamic of interaction, but there's not such a thing as a perfect communication. There is the notion of competence, of course, and the more you practice, the more you engage in communication, the more you put yourself in that situation, the better you're going to become, right? So I think that yes, and I actually answered this question before coming here because I thought it was really interesting. And what I put is that happiness and sadness are part of the spectrum, just like the idea of an effective communicator. However, the more you practice, polish your skills, and develop competence, that will develop assertiveness, and also it will make you more in control of your emotions and more aware of what works and what doesn't work for you. So I hope that I was able to, in some sort of way, tackle that kind of inquiry. Another question here, what makes a good communicator? Character or practice? Definitely a balance between the two. And that is something that we're going to be discussing throughout the whole session. On how to create that balance between the skills that you develop and how you react based on your character towards the different communication scenarios. So definitely a combination of both. So yeah, I want to talk briefly before moving to another questions. I saw a couple of questions in different discussion forums talking about the reaction response and the rubric for the reaction response. Some students are asking about the connection with the readings, that particular element of the grading criteria. What we're expecting you to do in that specific item is that we want you to engage with the material of the class. So, for instance, it's not only answering to the prompt question in your own words. We want you to use some of the words and concepts and theories that are discussed in the actual reading, because it is important for us to know that you're engaging with that material. And you have to think about it in this way. Human communication is something that we do on a daily basis. So in many ways, we are so used to it that we are able to communicate about it. We can talk about our communication skills and dynamics. However, the difference that this class is going to add is that it's adding some theories and concepts and explanation to some of those dynamics. So we want to see how by using the prompt question, you engage, those theories and concepts into your answer. So it's really important for us to see that you're including that vocabulary that is included in those readings. So when we're talking about connection with the readings, that's what we're actually looking for. Do we have any other live questions?
Yeah, so I have just actually asked for questions. So this is from Christoph, and he's asking, will having a greater knowledge of communication translate to being better at starting and holding conversations?
Oh yeah, definitely. But it has to, you have to make it in an organic way, and it will happen in an organic way. The thing is that this class, and you're going to realize this once the session is over, you're going to see the communication process in a completely different way. And I told my students here at ASU and my online classes, this class is going to empower you, because you're going to be able to identify some of the elements and some of the components of the communication process, and be able to do some sort of intervention in the communication process as well. And one of the modules that this is the most evident is the module on nonverbal communication. How you're going to be able to spot a person that is lying to you based on their facial expressions, right? How you're going to be able to see some discrepancy between their verbal communication and their nonverbal communication as a way of contradicting. And that is giving you a lot of information. You're going to be able to identify the value of the feedback of a conversation, right? By having some sort of conversation, like a dialogue with someone, and looking at their nonverbal communication versus what they are saying verbally, and identify, that feedback, and being able to use that feedback in order to modulate your conversation. But those things are going to happen without you having to be able to actually identify or say, like, okay, I'm gonna just acknowledge the context. No, it's just, you're just gonna enter a space, and you're gonna be able to identify all of these elements that we discussed briefly on Module 1 in the different models of communication. Okay.
Another one here. What's the biggest challenge you face as a communicator?
My biggest challenge. Well, there are several challenges, of course, that I face throughout my life, and it depends. They're very contextual based. First of all, when I moved to the United States, elaborating the message was hard for me because it was a different language. So I really have to put a lot of effort in constructing the message, and in many ways ignoring, for example, my nonverbal communication, right? So because I was putting much emphasis in for instance, being able to say the right things, or sound intelligent, those kind of things. So putting so much thought into the message while ignoring the other aspects of the communication process. So keeping that balance when English is not your first language, or when you're speaking language that is not your first language, that could be a challenge. At the same time, I always try to look the good things into it. So I did put a lot of effort into saying the right things and into constructing that message. And that will take me out of trouble at times, because a lot of people just speak their mind out, right? When you are talking your same language, the language that is your first language, and they don't think about what they say. But in my case, I'm constantly thinking and editing in my mind and doing that translation process, and that allows me to have some sort of a reflection. So there is a double kind of situation here. Any other question?
There's one other. Could you further explain the difference between the interaction model and the transaction model?
Yeah, so the interaction model, it's the circularity of it, right? And it's focusing that notion of a conversation, right? And again, recognizing the context, and the most important thing is that you need to understand in terms of these models that the more we advance and the more elements we add into the conversation or into the communication process, we're going to be adding and changing these models, right? Now with social media, for instance, how is social media affecting these kind of models, right? The obsession with the feedback. Nowadays, we are obsessed with sending some sort of feedback through these kind of digital platforms. How is that affecting the way we send the message and the way we receive the message, right? So it's very, again, contextual based. The role of the feedback is going to play a major role in one model versus the other. And some elements are going to be added. And this is something that we need to consider. When we talk about these models, don't think of them as a blueprint for communication. Think of them as opportunities to deconstruct the process of communication and to be able to identify different aspects and different elements in the process that could help you improve the communication process, of course. Any other question?
at this point, I'd ask them to, if they have to, just keep them coming.
So in the discussion forums, we're having a really, really nice kind of dynamic taking place, and I really want to stress the importance of your engagement in those discussion forums, because this is our opportunity to know how you are interacting with the content, and also how you are actually applying that content into your own life experiences. In module 2, we have a lot of amazing stories that has been shared, and I want to also emphasize that this class is a safe space for all of you. You should feel comfortable sharing this kind of information, because we're all adults and we are trained to understand this storytelling and these dynamics, and I'm really thankful for what's happening in the discussion forums. Very respectful, very nuanced conversations and debates that are taking place, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities to continue these debates and to elaborate and into some of the topics that has been brought into the class. And if there's something that you want to add that we are not specifically asking in the discussion forums, and you feel that is a theme or a topic that we should be engaging with, feel free to do it. This is the opportunity to make an intervention into this course, and your voice is really important. We want to really we want you to feel included in this conversation. This is not like a one person speaking to a lot of people without not considering their feedback. Let's use the concept that we are talking in the class. We want that feedback, and we want to read the way you construct these messages and make your voice heard. Okay.
Is there anything else that you would like to discuss?
No.
Oh. There's one of the students, Emily, said she made a Quizlet for week 1 terms, and she provided the URL here. I'm not familiar with Quizlets, are you?
No.
Well, if I'm going to open it up, Emily, basically it's like flashcards.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, here I can turn it around.
Oh, very nice.
See what it is.
Very nice. You can share this in the. I think that you we have the opportunity to share these kind of things in the discussion forums, right?
Yeah, you can share it. I mean, as long as the one thing we say in the discussion boards is, you can't sell anything.
Yeah.
But
feel free to share it. And I know that the rest of the class are going to be really grateful about that.
This one is she says that she can also make a quiz. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So you're welcome to elaborate on that one. But there is one question I think speaks to your particular module and area of expertise. Will we be talking about communication across cultures?
Yes, we're going to be talking about communication and culture, specifically about intercultural communication dynamics. I think living in a global world, having to deal with so many transnational dynamics in different kinds of scenarios, it is really, really important to have these kind of discussions and create some sort of awareness in terms of the importance of intercultural communication. And when I talk about culture, I'm not speaking specifically only about different ethnicities or race or countries, etc. When I talk about culture, it's on a more broader sense, right? For example, when we talk about culture, we can be discussing college students' culture, right? Or video games culture, or feminist group culture, So when we discuss intercultural communication, we're going to take into consideration all these different variables. We're going to be looking from an intersectional perspective, right? Taking into consideration notions of race, class, ethnicity, and how all those things are going to interact and have some sort of an influence in the process of communication. So yes, that is something that we're going to be discussing. So if there's no other question, I think that we're gonna be wrapping up. Or if there's anything else that the people in the live chat think I should talk about.
I'm just asking now. Okay, here's one. Why ask and you shall receive? Why is there scarce information about intrapersonal communication?
Intrapersonal?
Yeah, INTRA.
That's very good. Intrapersonal communication is really connected with psychology as well. And I think this is a field of study that overlaps with other fields of study. And I also understand, for example, this is not my area of expertise, but I feel that it deserves its own course because this is something that we are doing on a daily basis without knowing. For example, those discussion board posts, they are part of an intrapersonal communication, right? And you are engaging in a self-reflective kind of dynamic. And they're really powerful. They're really powerful because they really have some sort of a impact in the formation of your identity. But of course, there are other fields of studies that would just focus in identity process formation. And we discussed about that a little bit briefly on the second module. But there is definitely a lot to explore. And I encourage you to do more research in these topics because I think they are definitely important. We are living in a world on which we are, without knowing, obsessed with that interpersonal communication. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You go to Facebook. There's a quiz, right, that will ask you to answer a couple of questions and will tell you what kind of pizza you are. And you felt the need to actually do it, right? Why? Because I really want to know what kind of pizza I am, right? That's apparently that's something important. And you see quizzes like that on a daily basis on social media. But that need of answering, even though it would sound silly, it's also a way to find our voice and to know us better by engaging in this kind of question-answer dynamic. So that is something really interesting, and I would like to know if there's some more formal or concrete research in that area, because I haven't came across with anything, but I was thinking about it recently because we are actually, when we do this kind of quizzes, engaging in a process of an intrapersonal communication.
Okay. I'll say one more chance before we sign off. Anything else? I want to thank you.
You're welcome. And we have students from all over the world and from all over the United States, and we are really happy and honored to have you in our class and adding so much value to this discussion. I think it makes the class way more richer, and I'm really, really excited and looking forward to read more from you. Next week, for the next module, we're going to be talking about verbal communication. And the verbal communication is the one part of communication that we are most used to, right? It's constructing that message. It could be through our voice. It could be through sending a text message, posting a status on Facebook, sending a letter. So that's the verbal aspect. And there is so much more to it. And I hope that this next module is going to add to that conversation. So looking forward to read from all of you, and thank you very much.
One more live session on April 11th.
Oh, yes, we have one more live session on April 11th, and I'll be here to answer more questions, and hopefully there's going to be a lot of people joining this live session. Have a good day.